Hello Abnormals, and welcome back to the Ministry of Abnormality. I am your host, Abnormal, surrounded by asses of cats. Welcome back to my show. Today we're going to be discussing the topic of 5 things that we sometimes might think or believe will make us a better artist, but they actually don't. Sort of. So, what are these 5 things? Now, before I begin, as you will see in today's video with the artwork that's playing in the background, there is, I'm doing something a little different this time. I'm kind of trying to show a little bit more of the process and show a little bit more of how it gets done and how it gets made. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you find it to your liking and perhaps a little bit more useful. It's not just watching me draw, but you actually get to see how I go through designing a character from start to finish. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. 5 things that we sometimes might believe will make us a better artist, but they won't. Sort of. And so what I wanted to do with today's topic was consider different possibilities and also consider exceptions and a different point of view, and in the end actually give advice on how we can make this better or how we can improve it. This is my first time doing this, so hey, I hope it goes well, but then again, well, let's see what happens. Anyway, thing number one, a Cintiq. I get a ton of people that write to me, comment to me, both live and online, about how they just can't wait until they can buy a Cintiq and like really get serious about their art, or how they just can't wait to finally get their hands on a Cintiq and really see their art improve. And I always tell them, you know, it's a good tablet, don't get me wrong. Like, the Cintiq is an amazing tablet and I love mine. It's a little bit outdated now. It's a 22 HD, which is still awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love my tablet. But at the same time, there are many different tablets out better than this one now. And for example, I recently saw the 32. And wow, that is an amazing size for a tablet. And it just looks incredible. But it costs like, oh, it was like $3,600, something like that. $3,600 for those that don't count that way. But anyway, that's a lot of money. And guess what? They're great tablets, I won't deny that. But they're not magical tablets. They don't give you skills that you didn't have beforehand. These tools, and it's not just a Cintiq. I think I'm talking about expensive tools in general. So it doesn't have to be the Cintiq. It can be even an Intuos Pro. It can be any other brand of tablet. It can be a computer even. It can be Photoshop itself. Or maybe we're talking about some very expensive markers or expensive watercolors, or even a Moleskine sketchbook and stuff like that. All these things are expensive. They're worth every penny, don't get me wrong, but it's still a lot of money. And the problem here is that they're not magic, right? Just because you have amazing, super expensive markers, you're not going to magically become better at painting with markers. Just like because you got a Cintiq, you're not going to automatically become a better digital artist. Now, this is because the fundamentals of everything that you work on are independent from the tool. What I mean is, there's a lot of things you need to learn that are not dependent on you having a tablet or anything. Composition, value, color theory, perspective, anatomy. All these things are things that you can just learn with anything you can scribble with in a notebook. You can even draw on the wall if you want. You just need somewhere where you can draw. And you got what you need to learn. And you gotta learn these fundamentals. And you gotta practice. And you gotta really put your heart into it. And that can't be dependent on you having a Cintiq or whatever it is that we're talking about. There's also the problem that tablets are actually not for everybody. The Cintiq, while it looks amazing and it feels amazing, I've met plenty of artists that just have to admit, yeah, it's not for me. I just can't get any benefit out of it. I remember a long time ago, there used to be a webcomic called Mega Tokyo. It had a very beautiful, sketchy manga style. And this was several years ago. And the guy that made it, I can't remember his name, but anyway, the guy that made it, he got a Cintiq. And about a year or two later, he made this post that I read, and it really, really made me think about things, because this post, he said that he was abandoning his Cintiq because after a year or two, I can't remember if it was a year or two, but after a year or two, he had discovered that his Cintiq actually made his work go slower. And that he had kind of felt the obligation of using it because, you know, he had spent a lot of money on it. But that if he was... Oh, go ahead, cat. Okay. But that if he was honest with himself, he actually felt that he worked better without it. So he was abandoning his Cintiq. I don't remember what he did, if he gave it away. I don't think he gave it away. I mean, whatever he did with it, he just wasn't going to use it anymore as his main tool. He was just going to go back to pencil and paper because he believed that he worked better that way. And that got me thinking a lot, and I think about that a lot. Tablets are not for everybody. And I know a lot of artists that have tried a Cintiq and they just end up saying, yeah, it feels weird. I want to go back to how I do things. But, so here's the other point of view. Good tools can help, and bad tools can make your life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Having the proper tool for a job doesn't make the job easier, it just doesn't make the job any more difficult. You get the difference? One thing is that the Cintiq doesn't make me a better artist than I was before I had it, but the Cintiq does take away a lot of inconvenience from my work. I don't have to worry about a lot of things that I would have to worry if I were otherwise using pencil and paper and watercolors. So it takes away a lot of inconvenience, and it does make my life easier in certain ways. There are advantages to having the best tool available for a job, and it just makes things go the way they're supposed to go, if that makes any sense, right? Like some good watercolors will definitely give you better colors, and some good markers will do the same. And yes, a Moleskine sketchbook does have higher quality paper that does receive the pencil better. Now, not having the proper tools for a job can be a problem, and I have this is very personal for me, because when I was a student at the university, I did a semester of illustration, and I have a lot of fun telling this story to my students because I've been an illustration teacher since 2007, and I've been teaching specifically digital art since 2011. But when I was a student at the university where I was studying graphic design, illustration was my it was the semester that I did worst. Here where I live, you get grades from 0 to 5, and 3 is a passing grade. When I did illustration, that semester ended in 3.2. And, it was awful. And at the end of the semester, the teacher that I had, actually told me, you're not very good at this. You shouldn't do this. You should look for something else to do. This is a topic for another day, that specific thing. But anyway, towards the end of the semester, I was doing a watercolor painting, and I had some very cheap watercolors that I actually continue using to this day. And the teacher gave me a bad grade, and she said that one of the reasons that I had gotten that bad grade was because I was using very cheap watercolors. I was very, very angry. And I told her, like, what like, what would you do if I just couldn't afford good watercolors? Like, how, like, wouldn't you feel like really bad about telling me that if the situation here was that I can't afford good watercolors? Wouldn't you feel like kind of an ass? And I told her, if I'm good enough, I should be able to make amazing art using anything. And I think now, so many years later, that we both had a point. I would get the best results possible if I were using better quality watercolors. But if I'm a good enough artist, I can make great art with cheap watercolors. So there's a balance there. And while I shouldn't expect better results simply because I'm using better tools will help me give better results if I have the skill to back it up. So, what can we do? Well, first of all, you should buy what you need, and you should be honest with yourself. Do you actually need these tools? Do you actually need a Cintiq? Do you actually need these super expensive markers? And a very, very simple way to know if you need this is, are you going to make that money back? The new Cintiq 32 is $3,600. That's a lot of money. Now, if you're going to buy this... No, okay, first of all, let's discard all the people that can just go ahead and spend $3,600 and not even think about it. Good for you. Congratulations on being rich. But most people, that's money that we would have to think about. And that's a big financial hit if you're going to buy that thing. So, think about it. Are you going to make that money back? Now, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take years or months or days. But is this something that will help you do your job better and will help you, like, is this actually going to help you do your job better? And are you going to get benefit from it other than just, oh, it feels so awesome? If so, then yeah, maybe this is a good tool for you. On the other hand, you should also consider your level where you are at. If you're still not over the fundamentals, and by the way, you never will be. None of us ever are. But if you're still struggling with the fundamentals, if you're still learning these fundamentals, then maybe you don't need to spend bundles of money on the best tool. And you should just go for the simpler tools and stay with the fundamentals. On the other hand, whenever you're going to buy something that is so expensive that it means that you're going to take a huge financial hit, you should try it out first. There are ways that you can try out a Cintiq, for example, before you actually go and buy a Cintiq. I've seen Cintiq tryouts at conventions. I've seen the possibility of trying out digital tablets, especially now that, for example, you can get an iPad Pro. You can probably try that out at the local store where you would buy it. Or maybe you know somebody that has one. Or maybe the university where you study, or simply where you are, maybe you can organize an appointment to go try out a tablet and see if it works for you and see if it feels good for you. Now, keep in mind, though, that a lot of these tools take getting used to. I remember when I first got my Cintiq, it felt so weird, and I freaked out because I thought this costs so much money, and I don't like it. It took me about a month, actually, to get used to it. But after fiddling with it for about 10 minutes, I could at least see that, oh, yeah, this is going to take getting used to, but I can see where this is going. I can see that I'm going to like it. So do take that time and put in that extra effort to experiment with these super expensive tools before you spend so much money on them. And finally, think of tools as an investment. Like I said, are you going to make that money back in any way? I mean, I'm not just talking about, oh, come on, Pixie, don't do that with the microphone. That's annoying. Come here. Come here. Come here. People want to see you. No. Stop scratching yourself with the microphone. Come here. I have you now. There we go. Yes, I know. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, think of these tools as an investment. And making back your money, not just with money, but for example, is this tool going to help you save time? Is this tool going to make you do your job better? There are many, many different ways of like making an investment worth it other than just making back the money. And then of course there's making back the money. But think about these tools of an investment and just think about it. Is this a good investment for me? And that's it. So that's number one, a Cintiq or expensive tools. Number two, brushes. And I mean specifically Photoshop brushes, although, yeah, you can be in Clip Studio Paint and also be using brushes. But yeah, digital brushes. And this is a funny one because it seems like such a small thing, but I do get this. It's probably one of the requests I get the most. Can I have your brushes? Can I see your brushes? Can I get your brushes? I will buy them from you. Okay, first of all, and I don't want to ruin anybody's business here, but don't buy brushes. Okay? Don't. I'll explain why in a minute. But don't buy brushes. Come on. Brushes... My brushes in Photoshop are not the secret to my skill, or anybody's, for that matter, because, you know, you might be listening and thinking like, oh, but you don't have any skill. Well, they're nobody's secret, mine or otherwise. Like with the Cintiq, and that's why I made it number 2, because I think it connects somewhat to the Cintiq. Like with the Cintiq, my brushes in Photoshop are good, for me, but they're not magic. Right? They don't contain my skill. You can't download my brushes, use them, and suddenly absorb my skill, right? They're not our secret. They don't compensate for fundamentals, and they're not gonna make you a better artist in any way. The truth of the matter is that simple brushes work better. Simple brushes are way more effective at getting the job done in Photoshop. Okay, simple brushes are way... Ow. Really? Okay. Ow. Do you really have to use your claws? Okay. Anyway, simple brushes are way better at getting the job done than superbly complex brushes. And, well, you might not like hearing this, but when you see digital artwork and you can kind of see the brushes in the artwork, like you can kind of perceive the use of different brushes in the artwork, that's not good. That's not good. That is actually the sign of an amateur. That doesn't look good. And you're supposed to feel the brushwork. You're supposed to feel the looseness of the brush and see the brush strokes, but you're not supposed to be able to identify the brush. So when you look at artwork and you can identify the brush, that's really quite the sign of an amateur digital artist. And you can kind of see in artwork when there's like an excess of brushes. So yeah, brushes are not going to give you skills. They're not a secret. Actually, simple is better when it comes to brushes, and too many brushes is the sign of an amateur. But a bad brush can really just make your job more difficult. Using somebody else's Photoshop is like driving somebody else's car or wearing somebody else's underwear. It just doesn't feel right. Anybody that's been working with digital art for some time knows that there's nothing quite like your computer with your Photoshop and your tablet, because you have it all adjusted exactly the way you want it. So having your brushes adjusted properly and to your needs and how you like it is essential to working comfortably in digital art. And having a brush that doesn't do what it's supposed to do is just a nightmare. Also, bad brushes can look fake. You know, when you see that digital art that everything is like too polished or too gradient and everything's like too clean, it just looks fake. So yeah, bad brushes are bad, and you need good brushes. It's just that they don't have to be the super complicated brushes. Now, also keep in mind that having too many brushes in Photoshop will make Photoshop slower. So, I mean, I'm not talking about having like 20 or 30 in there, but I've known people that have like thousands of brushes. They kind of collect them as if they had some sort of power, and they just put them all, and stuff them all into Photoshop, and then they're wondering why Photoshop is taking so long to start up. Well, don't put so many brushes into Photoshop. It makes it go slow. It makes it start up slow. So what can we do? Well, here's what I was mentioning before. It is important to have good brushes, and a bad brush will make your life miserable. But brushes are not magical, and they do not have some sort of secret. And you shouldn't buy brush packages because it is so easy to learn how to handle brushes in Photoshop and make your own that suit your needs. So you shouldn't really go out to buy brushes. You can make a brush in Photoshop in a matter of minutes. And seriously, learning how to make brushes in Photoshop is something that, if you're moderately intelligent, should not take you more than 20 minutes, half an hour. You will find so many tutorials online, and in this video, I will make the commitment to actually make an updated tutorial for Photoshop brushes for 2019. I mean, not that I'm gonna make it during the year, but you know, for Photoshop 2019, I'll make a tutorial, and you'll see it is so easy, and you will find so many. There is no reason for you to not save that money, go watch a tutorial on how to make, handle, and everything with brushes, and then make your own that fits your needs. When making your own brush, consider actual brushes, like the actual tools that you have in real life. And if the brush that you're gonna make does things that would be impossible to do with what you have in like real life, like in a paintbrush or a pencil or anything like that, then that brush should be used in very, very, very specific occasions. So that's a good guideline to go by. Make sure that your brushes feel as natural as possible, and very, very specific special brushes should be used on very specific and special occasions. And also try not to use too many brushes in your work. It's better to have 2, 3, 4, or simply a small package of brushes that you really, really like and that you really, really feel comfortable with, than to have 100 brushes and then just start pumping them into your artwork and having it look kind of amateurish in the end. So, no, brushes are not magical, but yes, a bad brush is a bad thing. Learn how to handle brushes. It is so easy, and it will solve a lot of problems for you. Okay, so we're at the middle now, and it's thing number 3. And thing number 3 is going to be courses and tutorials. Specifically online courses and tutorials, but I suppose it could also apply to courses that you could take in real life. Anyway, I've known a lot of people that seem to... I like to call them like tutorial hoarders. Pixie, please stop doing that with the cable. It makes noise in the recording, and that's annoying to people. Come here. So anyway, I've known a lot of tutorial hoarders. People that just accumulate tutorials and they dump them into this folder. I used to think I had a lot because I have like, I don't know, something around 150, maybe 200 gigs of tutorials on my computer. And no, I like my students, the average student of mine in several semesters had more than me. And by more, I mean like, I remember I had one student that had like 2 terabytes of tutorials, and they sucked. And that's the thing, you see, first of all, not all tutorials are good, because there really is no standard for this thing, right? Like, just because somebody... Okay, first of all, if you made a tutorial, like you actually recorded the tutorial and people can watch it and you edited the video, and you had the discipline to make a complete tutorial, good for you. That takes work, and I applaud that. But that being said, not all tutorials are good. First of all, just because you recorded a tutorial doesn't mean you were fit to teach. And I don't mean anything about certifications or anything like that. What I mean is that there are a lot of people that are just not at the point in their skill level yet where they should be teaching. And I realize that this sounds very pretentious of me to say because I am a teacher. So it's kind of like me saying like, oh, I mean, a lot of people shouldn't be doing what I'm doing because well, I know how it sounds, but you guys know it's true. There are some people that are just like, yeah, you need a little bit more time in the oven before you come out to teach. So, first of all, there's that. Second, just because you're a good artist, and you can be the best artist, that doesn't make you a good teacher. They're actually two different skills. I've known some of the best artists that are... Wait, what? How did I say that? Okay, I've known some amazing artists, like some of the best I've ever seen, that were horrible teachers, that were just no good at it. And that's the thing, they're two separate skills. Some people have them, some people just have one of them. I've actually met pretty mediocre artists that make excellent teachers, because when it comes to teaching the fundamentals, there are a lot of people that just go through the fundamentals and can't go beyond that, but hey, somebody needs to teach that. And then there's the fact that some tutorials are just plain wrong. Some contradict each other, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting different point of views, but for example, I just said that, like in thing number 2, that you shouldn't be using too many brushes. And I saw a video last week where they were saying that a digital art mistake that you were making is that you were not using enough brushes. What? That goes against everything I've ever been taught by anybody, except that person. So, I mean, there's stuff like that. There's people that just have no business teaching, and then there's good artists that are bad teachers, and then there's just tutorials that are just plain boring. And I mean, when you add all that together, a good tutorial is difficult to find. But then there's the fact that a tutorial is no good if you don't actually watch it, study it, and practice it. You can't just watch a tutorial and there you go. I mean, sure, there's some simple stuff, you know, like a command in Photoshop or a trick. But the really big courses and tutorials are no good if you don't actually watch them and practice them and study them and process them. You can have terabytes of tutorials and courses on your computer and not watch any of them. And that's really of no use. That's just nothing. And on the other hand, you can watch a lot of tutorials, but not practice them, not study them, not actually try out what they taught you in the tutorial. And that's no good as well. So that's the thing. Like, tutorials are not going to automatically make you a better artist, but we need to learn. And I will be the first one to say, yeah, you gotta do the courses, you gotta do the tutorials, because that's how I learned. I studied graphic design. And graphic design, for those of you that don't know, not illustration, not art. It's a completely different thing. They're related, they go well together. I get to apply my graphic design knowledge as an artist, but it's not the same. It's not even remotely the same. And so yeah, like I said, I mean, they're quite connected, but not the same. Sure, they're more connected than like studying law, but if you're a graphic designer, that doesn't mean that you're an artist or an illustrator. So when I graduated from graphic design and started illustrating, I had to start taking online courses. And I will recommend online courses a lot. I'll talk about that more in thing number 5, but I will recommend them a lot. They are very helpful. They are a great way to get information that is up to date. And they're also a great way to get affordable education. We are professionals that don't require diplomas, right? You don't need this, and that goes to topic 5. We'll get on that later, but we don't need to go to a school. Courses and online tutorials and stuff like that, and discipline. will get you very far. And hey, they served me well. So I'm not gonna say that there's no use in courses or tutorials. That's how I learned. So what do we do? Well, first of all, you need to evaluate... Pixie, stop doing that, please. I'm gonna have to edit this video, and I'm not very good at that. Okay. So... Wow, where was I? Okay, yeah, so... In the process of learning, have a method. Have a process. Get somebody... Like, I don't know, get advice from somebody. Show your portfolio and get somebody to point you in the right direction. Get somebody with a skill level that you admire or something like that to maybe take a look at yourself and tell you, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's where you need to go next. And then look up courses and tutorials in that. Look for quality. Look at how other people think about this. Look for... look at the artwork of the person that's doing the tutorial and see if that looks like something that you would... I don't know, I mean, does it have the quality that you want? Once you do find it, do one at a time. Take the time to actually watch it. Take the time to actually process it, study it, understand it, practice it, do the exercises. Watch it at least a couple of times along the way. And make sure that you don't move on to another tutorial until you're actually done with the one you started. That doesn't mean, of course, that you can't start a tutorial and halfway through go like, I can't do this anymore, goodbye. That happens more times than most. More times than... Yeah, it happens a lot. But also, if a tutorial's good and if you're learning and all that kind of stuff, actually go through with it before you go to the next course. Now, also, don't be embarrassed to actually be a little picky. If an artist is giving a tutorial, check out their art. Look up their credentials. See if this person actually has the skill and the experience to back up what they're supposed to be teaching you. Do you want to do a tutorial in concept art? Okay, where has this person worked? What has this person done? Do you want to do a tutorial in digital painting? Okay, let me see your digital paintings. Let's see what kind of artist you are, and there I'll see if I actually want to learn from you or not. Don't be afraid to be picky. It's your money, and more importantly, it's your time, and even more importantly, it's your skill. So don't feel the obligation to just consume every single tutorial that comes across your path. No, actually check it out. See what it's about and see if it's good enough for what you need. Okay. Thing number 4 is actually something that I was going to make into its own video, but eventually it became this video. So thing number 4 was actually the thing that that was my first idea for this video. And it is art books. Art books, concept art books, artist sketchbooks, all those beautiful, wonderful, amazing, and super expensive books that we buy and we look at a few times and we never look at again, although I am willing to admit that maybe some people actually do look at them every day. But if you are looking at your art books every day, really, how do you have that kind of time? Anyway, I stopped buying a lot these art books. I have a few. I mean, so don't get me wrong, I have a few. But I stopped buying them because of what I just said. You know, you would look at them a few times and then you never look at them again, and they're expensive and they take up space. Now the thing is, I get a lot of students that buy these art books as if it's some sort of triumph. And don't get me wrong, they are lovely. And I have no problem with buying a book because it's lovely and you like looking at it and it's a beautiful book that you want to have in your home. If that's the case, great. We have no problem here. But I know a lot of people that see these books as if they were part of their learning process. Like, they check out these books and they go through them as if this was a learning experience. And okay, there might be something to be said about, you know, looking at beautiful art and getting inspiration from it. But the truth of the matter is that these books are not a true reflection of how the job goes. When you see an artist's sketchbook, that's not like all the sketches they've made. That's like a selection of their best stuff. When you see a concept art book for a movie or a video game, that's not actually what concept art is like. That's not actually how it works. Concept art is messy, and it's not elegant, and it's not beautiful. When you see those concept art books, that is, well, first of all, it's not even a fraction of the amount of art that gets produced in a video game or a movie or any kind of entertainment medium. And second, these are selected and polished up to be shown in the book. So when you look at these books and you think that that is actually what it's like, it's the equivalent of you watching a movie and thinking that, a martial arts movie, and thinking that that's actually what people fight like. Or looking at an Instagram model and believing that that person is actually that pretty in everyday life. No. These things are a product, and they are retouched and processed and selected and curated and everything so that they are as beautiful as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that if you are aware of that. But if you're buying these books thinking that you're going to actually learn what the process of the job of being a professional artist is actually like, you're gonna get some very, very wrong ideas in your head, and that might be a problem later on. But there is something to be said about appreciating this process if you are aware of what's going on, of what is behind it. And like I said, looking at beautiful books is just wonderful and pleasant. And you can get a lot of inspiration, you can get a lot of ideas. If you actually understand the process of concept art and you get a concept art book, you will be able to get a lot out of it, because you will be able to fill in the blanks in between each part of it. So what do? Well, hey, first of all, don't feel the need to buy these books if you can't afford them. Like everything else on the list, they're not magic. They're not, like, you're not going to absorb the skill off of them. If it's just about looking at the artwork, most of the artwork in these books you can check out online in one way or another. But don't feel that need. But if you can afford them and they are available for you, there's nothing wrong with having a beautiful book in your home. Now, if you want to make the most out of this, take the time to actually learn what the real process is like. What the real process of creating a character, of being an illustrator for an editorial, of making a comic, all these things. Actually take the time and put in the effort to really learn what it's actually like. And I guarantee you will make... These books will benefit you so much more, because you will be able to fill in the blanks and actually know what's going on behind the scenes. And you'll get a lot more benefit out of these books. So that's what I would recommend doing. And finally, thing 5. And thing 5 might be a bit controversial, but I don't know if any of the other things I've said might be controversial. I don't know. I don't like controversy. I don't know if anybody does. Anyway, thing number 5 is university. And I say this as a professor. I work at a university. I'm a professor at a university. I've said this a million times. And from that position, I can tell you, yeah, you don't need this. A university is expensive. I don't know if it's less expensive in other parts of the world, but I know that at least in my country and in the US, at least, I know that universities are insanely expensive. And the thing is, for what you get from a university, the price is way too damn high. Now, I'm just speaking in my area, right? Like, I'm not saying that a doctor should just, like a self-taught doctor or a self-taught engineer. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking in our profession. The price of studying in a university and the benefits you get from it are not like leveled. And again, like, hey, if you happen to have the luck of being in a place where studying is not super expensive, well, then good for you. But I happen to know that people where I live and people in the US, that's not the case. And you're not getting enough out of it. So I just really don't recommend it. But there's more problems to it. There's more problems to consider. One of the problems I would urge you to consider is that just because somebody, and I say this as a person that teaches in one, just because somebody's teaching in a university doesn't mean that they have the skill, the quality, or the experience to back that up. Think about it this way. For all those of you that have maybe been in the university, how many times have you felt like you could shut your teacher up? Not because you know more, because a lot of times students think they know more and they're wrong, but how many times have you felt that you could shut your teacher up just by saying, how would you know? I've seen a lot of teachers in the universities that just don't have the experience to back up what they're saying. And they'll tell their students, like, you have to illustrate this way or you have to do that way because that's the way it goes in the industry and that's the way it works in the industry. But when you go and you look at what they've done, they don't actually have any industry experience. So how would they know what they're talking about? Their source of information is just as good as yours at that point. Now, am I saying that the teachers at your university should all be like super famous, high-level artists that take time out of their incredibly busy schedules to go and rain a little bit of knowledge upon you? No. But your teacher should have something to back up what they're saying, and a lot of times they don't. And a lot of times they're just simply not good. I remember watching a YouTube video not too long ago. A YouTube artist. I thought she was very, very nice and very, very entertaining. Something in her name with Town. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I am so sorry. This is so embarrassing because, oh, Lavender Town. That's her name, Lavender Town. This YouTube artist, because I've been watching a lot of YouTube artists. So a YouTube artist by the name of Lavender Town was talking about the different kind of teachers. She has a video where she talks about the different kind of teachers that you'll meet in art school. And it's funny because, oh, she has this really, really charming way of doing it, which is where she draws what she's actually talking about, which I don't do. But anyway, she draws what she's talking about. So she would talk about the different teachers that she met at art school, and she would draw each one of these teachers. And it's funny because it's a very, she has a cute, charming, delightful style, and she's very good at it. But more importantly, it's that watching that video, she got me thinking, not only is this very true, but this shouldn't happen. Right? Like, she was talking about teachers where the teacher just happened to have written a book or published something, and the whole semester was just the teacher talking about their book. Or teachers that just didn't make you do anything, or teachers where you wouldn't learn anything. That happened to me at university too, and the thing is, you're paying so much money for this. This shouldn't happen. It's not feasible for us to demand 100% quality from the university, but for the price that we have to pay for it, we should get it. But we don't, and it's much more complicated than just demanding that you get it. So sometimes I think it's best to consider that maybe university is not the best option for everybody. If you're going to just live a life of being in debt to be at a university, start considering that maybe it's not worth all that. Also, university can actually have negative effects. You know, they can, a lot of times teachers will pass on to their students their bad art habits and their prejudices and all that kind of stuff. A lot of times teachers will pass that on to their students, and the students will inherit that from them. And so being a teacher really requires, it's a very, very delicate situation, because you have to make sure that you are giving your students the best education possible while contaminating them the least possible. Not all teachers take that into account. But there is a lot of benefit to be had from a university. For starters, there's the social aspect of it, which any artist will tell you there is a lot of social aspect to what we do. Networking, making friends, making contacts, all those things. You can get those things at a university. You can make friends. You can make colleagues. You can make contacts. You can start networking. All those things. Now, keep in mind that these are all things that you can make outside of the university as well, but the university will kind of incentivize those things. Also, there's a chance that you get good teachers, and a good teacher is a great thing. And so if you're in the university and you have a great teacher, please appreciate them and all that, and make the most out of them. Universities will give you things like structure, and they will give you process, and they will give you very, very valuable skills and knowledge, which are skills and knowledge that you can get outside of the university. The city will not. So go to a university if you can afford it without ruining your life, and go to a university if it's available, if it's something that you have, and above all else, if they're going to offer you what you need, if they have the quality. Now, there are alternatives to university that I would recommend. Online art schools. I started with CGMA, and I was very, very fortunate that my first experience with an online course was extremely good. I had the good fortune of learning scenery design with James Pack, brilliant concept artist, and it was such a great experience. So I will defend online art schools, like just to the day I die. I love them. And after that, I went to schoolism, and schoolism is great. I've done several of schoolism's courses, and I've always had a great experience. And these are great. They're not cheap, but they're definitely not as expensive as studying at a university. And if you put this together with thing number 3, remember what I said about online courses and stuff like that, and tutorials? Well, think about this. A course in schoolism can be as cheap as $30 a month with no teacher. They just give you the materials. By the way, I'm not sponsored by schoolism or anything. I wish I was. Holy crap, I wish I was. But I'm not. I'm not sponsored by schoolism or anything. I just took some of their courses so I can speak very highly of them. But hey, if you want to sponsor me... Well, anyway. A schoolism course can cost anything from $30 a month. And $30 a month, you have access to their entire library. Just no teacher. You just get the courses. Or their courses can go up to like $1,000, and it's a course where you will have a teacher and you'll have direct contact with the teacher. Now, $1,000 a month, not a month. $1,000 does sound like a lot of money, but consider this: how much does it cost you to study at a university? Now, what if you were to grab courses from schoolism and like, I don't know, package maybe 2 a year with everything that you need, from fundamentals to advanced techniques, and you do 2 of those a year for 3 years or 4 years, you know, what it would last to be in a university. I guarantee that if you do these and you actually study them and practice them and really get into them, by the end of those 3 or 4 years, you will probably be better than most people that went to a university, and at a fraction of the cost. We're talking like 3,000, maybe 6,000, some people between 3,000 and 6,000, depending on how many courses you decide to take. And that's just something that I just came up with right now. Or you could just pay 30 bucks a month and take their courses without teacher, and then like every couple of years take one with a teacher. In what would take a person to go into university and get out, for a fraction of the cost, you will have increased your skill level exponentially. So that's a possibility. Universities are great, but there is no replacement for discipline, passion, and dedication combined with organization and an actual process and a methodology. That's what university gives you, but that's not a secret, and you can have that on your own. So that would be my conclusion for thing 5. If you have access to a university and you can go to a university without ruining your financial life, go ahead, have fun, make friends, get networking, and hey, there will be, hopefully, some good teachers. But if you can't, don't worry. Just discipline, dedication, look online, make your own little kind of curriculum, and I guarantee you will still do great. Also, there's a lot of institutions that are not a formal university, but will still give you a great education. So look those up as well. And of course, I just spoke about CGMA and schoolism, and again, I'm not sponsored. I'd like to be, but I'm not. But there's a lot more. So the reason I like CGMA and schoolism is because their teachers are curated, right? They select the best. But I've also done courses on Udemy and Skillshare and stuff like that. And the thing about there is that you have to be careful because they have some teachers that are not so good, but they have some great ones. So you just have to kind of dig in a little bit deeper. Just do your homework and you'll get a lot of benefit from it. So there you have it. 5 things that we sometimes might think will make us a better artist, and they won't. With exceptions, and at the end with what we can do about it. I hope this video was useful. Please let me know how you feel about this format. I was trying to be a little bit looser with the way I talk, and I did a little bit of stuff with the editing of the video and made it all a little bit longer and all that. And also how you feel about like me just showing a little bit more of the art process, you know, showing the design and the mood board and like all the sketching process and all that kind of stuff. So let me know what you think. And also, if you have ideas for future topics, please let me know. And that's about it. I'll try to make a video next week. Thank you for watching this one. Hey, if you have any idea of how I can improve, I welcome it. I'm very new at this, so hey, bring it on. I welcome all criticism as long as it helps me improve. Until next time, I have been your host, O Abnormal. Thank you for watching the Ministry of Abnormality. That has been 5 things we think will make us better artists, but they won't, sort of. Oh, I suck at goodbyes.